with all due respect.
Luckily, we weren't too far in.
All right, with all due respect, we are back. You guys don't know this, but we just had some internet issues. And all of a sudden it paused, Gray paused, I paused. I think I have probably 17,000 things connected to the internet in my house,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Easily.
I think everything,
Hmm.
I think somehow my brain is connected to the internet.
Hmm.
Um, but we are here, we are live with all due respect. We don't know what it is, but today's conversation is the current state of youth sports. And we have not filmed this in order. You will hear from a woman called Tiffany Jones,
Hmm.
a PhD in applied sports psychology. That was an amazing conversation.
So cool. Hmm.
Great, unbelievable conversation, right? She's so good at what she does. She has some great insight for parents that we decided to do a whole series, maybe three, maybe four, I don't know,
Yeah.
to talk about the current state of youth sports. I spent 25 years in the industry, from coach to trainer to youth sports development to now having a parent, being a parent of a kid. Um, and basically, we're going to talk is just the things I've observed in the industry. I
Hmm.
read a lot about the industry. Gray, you played youth sports. You have friends that played youth sports. You've had experiences, and there's some shocking statistics that I think that we'll probably talk about eventually in this series. 70% of kids quit sports by the time they're 13. More and more coaches are getting out of the industry. Um, Injury, we've never been in a state in history that we've known more about youth sports injuries, but yet
But
there's
have
still,
more.
but have more,
Yeah.
right? You would think
Hmm.
education would lead. Well, what do we know about weight loss? Education doesn't lead to habit change, right?
Right. Yeah.
We've known that. You can't educate your way out of into being healthy, right? It's all about community and culture. And um, as I said that, I kind of realized, well, why do we have the most injuries in youth, but yet the most knowledge? Is because we can't educate our way out of that,
Hmm.
right? So we're going to have a series where we're going to have coaches on. We're going to have parent advocates on. I would like to have athletes come in and share their experiences, positive or negative. Um, Talk about solutions. We're in a big hole in youth sports. Like
Yeah.
we're in a hole in youth sports where I think the people who really, and I have a group thread, a text message with two other guys that are highly involved in youth sports. One of them came on our podcast, Josh Holmes.
Hmm.
Um, and we share examples of what we're hearing every day and stories of what's going on every day. Softball parents who have done second mortgages on their home so they can afford to play travel summer every summer for their kid, come to find out their 17-year-old ends up quitting softball and telling their parents, I don't want to play anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Um, Club coaches telling 12-year-old soccer girls they should never play another sport. You have to play soccer year round.
Hmm.
Um, Injuries happening earlier and earlier and earlier. We had a podcast earlier where Mike talked about girls getting their period at 19. It's happening
No,
earlier.
younger.
Younger?
Younger. Yeah.
Or nine,
Yeah.
nine,
19.
nine, nine,
Yeah. I was
19.
about to say
Oh, that's
19
right.
is
Yeah.
late.
Yeah. That's how much I know
Yeah.
about
Nine
that.
or
That's how much I know
10.
about that.
9 or 10.
9 or 10 years old. Well, now we have, and I hate to use this as a correlation, but things are happening earlier and earlier and earlier to our kids. I think it's
Yeah.
due to exposure, whatever they're
Yeah.
exposed to. But, 13, 14, 15-year-olds having Tommy John surgery,
Hmm.
more and more girls tearing their ACLs.
Hmm.
Concussions are on a rise. Um, I know guys who made a career as a sports agent in baseball and consults lots of kids on baseball at an early age. He one time told me he would never want his kid to be a pitcher.
Mm.
And this guy
I
makes
talk
his
about that all the
career.
time.
He goes, I don't
Like
want my kid to be
every
a pitcher.
every time we have a conversation about something, like we talked about, the iPhone thing. It's like somebody that's heavily involved inside of, what they're
Wow,
contributing
good
to. They're like,
point.
I'm not letting my kid do that,
Yeah, wasn't
you
it Steve
know?
Jobs doesn't allow iPhones in his home?
Yeah, something like I think it was
A
Steve Jobs that we
professional
were talking
a
about.
professional sports agent who's made a career helping people make millions in sports, never wants his kid to pitch.
Yeah.
I have said it before, and this is another example. That's a really good observation. When my kid was born, I remember people were like, "Oh, he's gonna do jitsu, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do this." He's like, "Man, if my kid just like learned piano and learned to play on the playground and didn't play sports, I would encourage it just the
Yeah.
same. I'd just encourage it
Yeah.
just the same." Um, you know, my son didn't have a hard time telling me he didn't want to do jujitsu anymore. His mother had to come to me and be like, "Hey, Asher's not sure if he wants to do jujitsu anymore, but he's afraid he'll like hurt your feelings." And I went to him and said, "Buddy, that's for you.
Hmm.
Just because I love it doesn't mean you have to love it,
Yeah.
right? Like, just because, I mean, I said, do I have to like, and I said this to him, I said, do I have to like all the movies you like?" He goes, "No." I said, "Then you don't have to like jujitsu because I like it. In fact, it's just 2 less days I have to drive down to the jujitsu school."
Yeah.
Right? I said, I'm not bothered by it. I'm not there all the time now. I'm there all the time already, right? And I make the joke all the time that capitalism has killed youth sports.
Sure.
And I say it as a joke because obviously I'm not a communist, right? If you know me at all,
It's
you
well,
know, right?
it's more like
It's a
money
tongue
is
in
the root of
cheek.
all evil kind of
Okay,
thing. It's like
probably.
everything's a
Oh,
business.
yes, I get it. Okay, money is the root of all evil, right?
Yeah.
And um, the same way some sports organizations tell kids um that they have to play one sport is because they want their dollars to stay inside their club. Just like the
Yeah.
hospital wants the money to stay. That's why they tell you to go to their physical therapist. They want the money to stay inside the hospital. They want the
Hmm.
money to stay inside their club. They don't want to compete for your dollars. So they want you to keep spending money because youth sports is a billions of dollars industry.
Yeah. I'd love to see a statistic on that actually. What
Like
the
what the
annual
what's the market
gross
cap?
income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the market cap? The fact that people the fact that all people do is run youth sports organizations and don't do anything else, that should tell you enough.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna pull like a Jamie from Joe Rogan and look it up really quick on
Yeah.
Chat
Yeah, look it up,
GPT.
Yeah, look it up, Jamie. Yeah, yeah, right. Um, because
Sports in America.
it's kind of like I kind of equate it to this. Like I've met kids in college where I say, "What do you want to do?" And they said, "I want to be a politician." I say, "Okay, well, that's a public servant, but what do you really want to do?" Well, people are
Yeah.
politicians for careers now. Like it's a
Yeah.
moneymaker.
Absolutely. Here's what I got.
Okay.
This is from on a global scale, so global, the youth sports market was valued at 37.5 billion in
Global,
2022.
globally.
Yep. And it's projected to reach 69.4 billion by 2030. According to the Aspen Institute, US families collectively spend between 30 to 40 billion annually on their children's activities, sport activities. So that's in the US. In the US, more than 60 million children participate in organized sport every year, and the average family spends approximately 1,400 annually per child on equipment, training, travel, and competition fees.
Well, that's
Um,
average. That's
yeah,
average.
average,
So that means some
average.
people are spending zero. Some people are
Yeah,
spending 2,800. Some people are, you know,
yeah,
accessibility in youth sports is a big thing to me right now. Accessibility.
sure, absolutely.
Um, to play high level travel baseball has priced out a large majority of people because it's
Oh
so.
yeah, travel soccer is the same way.
Is it really?
100. Oh yeah. I
Unless
mean,
you
well,
can afford it.
yeah, it's tournament weekends. Like I don't remember as much for my brother having to travel and stay for a whole weekend. For me, we would travel and it would be a hotel pretty much everywhere we went because the club competition for my club, which is if you guys are familiar with the Greenville area, CISA is a huge club here. The competition that we would have to go and practice or play with, that you have to travel for it. We
Yeah.
didn't have any local competition
Yeah.
that would, and no offense, that would be able to keep up with us very well.
Atlanta,
So
Nashville,
Atlanta,
Charleston,
Nashville,
Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah,
Yeah.
Columbia,
Yeah.
Charleston. We would go all over the place. And
Mhm.
so, Griffin had my brother had more local competition where they would go like Malden and maybe like Greenwood or whatever, but mine
Mhm.
would have to be a couple hours away. And
Mhm.
The coach always wants you to stay in the hotel, even if you're going to Columbia. It's only an hour and a half from here, but you still have to play. You have to go to the hotel, and you probably have an 8 a.m. game on Sunday, so you're not leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning to get there by 7.
I've no
So
interest in doing that with my child.
yeah, I mean, it's
So,
intense. Like, and
yeah.
that started when I was 11 or 12,
Young man,
probably.
wow.
Yeah.
We have pressure on it for an 8-year-old right now.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah. It's like moving from U8 to U10 is like that's a big jump because they're probably still playing. What are they playing now? Is it 8v8 or less than
That
that?
eight, yeah, I think 7 versus 7,
7v7.
8 versus 8,
Yeah.
small
Because
field.
then you'll soon move to 11v11. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge jump up, and they're starting to do that younger. So
You
it's
know,
wild.
you bring up if this isn't the telltale sign of the current state we're in youth sports, there are now organizations that do national rankings for 9 under, 11 under, and 13 under,
Yeah.
where I see parents posting with pride, my kid's the 13th ranked U9 baseball player in the state.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think that was the thing when I was going through youth sports.
Dang, okay.
It definitely was in high school. Like we had player rankings in high school.
Yeah. It's just that's an interesting thing to be like, wow, we have player rankings for that
Yeah.
age. But
Yeah.
I mean, these are all topics we're going to talk about. We'll talk about 70% of kids quit sports. I think we need to understand what happens to most kids at 13. Um, people say people kind of bucket this and they go, well, it's because parent pressure. Well, at 13, you also start to compete against other things, hanging out with your friends.
Hmm.
At 14, 15, 16, you have friends that can drive. You get a boyfriend, you get a girlfriend, right?
Hmm.
Up until those stages, there's nothing to really compete. I know a scout who once told me that who's I think he was a baseball coach at the time. He goes, "Man, I don't even worry about a kid and how much he loves the game until he starts to compete against other things." The parents will be like, "My 13, 14-year-old loves baseball." Then he gets a car, he gets a girlfriend, and he's just not that interested in it anymore. That's
Hmm.
also the age they start doing cuts. That's also the age where puberty kicks in, and all of a sudden, some kids just aren't good enough.
Hmm.
There's injuries. There's a lot of reasons 70% quit. I hate to throw it under the bus. Coaches' concerns, right? Youth sports coaches' concerns. Some of the main things I found were parental interference and unrealistic expectations
Hmm.
from a coaching perspective. Coaches are no longer asked to just do X's and O's.
Hmm.
They do a lot more. Listen, I know a lot of coaches that wish all they had to do was coach and game plan.
Hmm.
They do so much more. If you're going to go coach at a high school now and they pay you $2,500 stipend for the year, if you mark that down to dollars, you're making like minimum wage.
Yeah.
You're doing so much. One of the hardest things I've had to do is manage the expectation of a parent around their kid. I know families right now that don't even want to talk to me anymore because they sat me down and said, where do you think my athleticism limit for my child and what level can you think he can play? And I say, hey, baseball. If you really love baseball, you can probably play baseball in college. There's so many,
Hmm.
you can play D3, you can go to schools and play college. If you really love it and you're decently talented, there's a spot for you. The
Yeah.
problem is that most kids will say, I'm only going to play if I'm going to play at Clemson or Wake Forest or Georgia Tech or North
Hmm.
Carolina.
Hmm.
And then they find out they're not good enough. They're like, I don't want to play D3 because they don't love enough, right?
Yeah, you don't love it enough.
Managing the expectation for a kid. And I've had parents sit down and say, oh, I know my kid's only 5'6", 145 pounds, but you don't know my kid. He's so hardworking and determined to play at Clemson.
I think
Probably,
I would argue you see that kid in a sport aspect and in a sport environment way more than the parent does.
yeah.
You
And
know?
it's just not what I started doing at one point was I've told multiple kids, okay, go write down the 5 schools you want to go play at,
Hmm.
and then go look at 5 years of people who have played your position
Hmm.
and look at their measurables.
Yeah.
and then you tell me what you think. They'll
Mhm.
come back and be like, I'm 3 inches too short, 3/10 of a second too slow, 25 pounds underweight. I go, okay,
Yeah.
well, what's that mean? It's like, well, I'm probably not going to play there. I'm like, probably not.
That's
Right?
I think that's a conflated idea sometimes too, is you pick the schools that you want to go to because that's where you want to go, and you don't think about the program that you're getting into. That was my thing with thinking about college sports. I was like, I don't want to go to any of these teams that are recruiting me. I don't want to go
Yeah.
to any of these schools. None
I've
of
seen
them.
that a lot. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of kids go, okay, I can't play where I want to go, but education is really important to me. So I might not be able to get in and to play football at Virginia Tech, but my academics get me there because I want to go into I want to go into engineering. I don't
Yeah.
want to go to the schools. And that's
Mhm.
those
That's
kids
fine.
those kids
Yeah.
make sense to me. They make sense. Hey,
Yeah.
I don't want to go play. I want to my I had a great time in college and high school, and this is where I want to go from the academics. I'm thinking the long game.
hmm
I said, that's
Yeah.
great.
And you forget about, you can go to college and play intramural and club teams too.
You can
There's
still
nothing
enjoy
wrong with
sports and
that.
be
Yeah.
active.
Exactly.
Depending on the sport, 4 to 6% of kids that play high school sports that grad. So here's a statistic. We know that 70% quit by 13.
hmm
4 to 6% go on to play a college sport. That's just D3 to D1. That's across the board.
hmm
4 to 6% go somewhere to play. Of that 4 to 6%, 25% of them quit by the end of their freshman year.
hmm
Because I've heard college kids say, man, I remember when this was fun.
I mean, you make a bunch of friends in college that a lot of them are not playing college sports, and it's your first time out on your own, and you're probably doing other things that probably don't align with your current sport. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's
Oh,
hard. I mean,
I've heard kids say, I can't wait to go to school to play college sports because they're going to go play. But man, I can't wait to rush the sorority and fraternity too. I go,
yeah.
no, it's not how it works. You're
It's like
not.
partially an identity crisis at 18 when you're learning how to be on your own and you're totally out of your like I lost my way with my own health and fitness at 18 because I didn't have a routine anymore. I didn't have structure. My
Yeah.
only structure was the classes that I was going to, and I mean that was still only a certain amount of hours per week. It wasn't,
Yeah,
I
sure.
totally had time in the day to do other things. I just didn't because I didn't have to.
College sports is really hard. I don't care where you're going.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
It is the majority of your time. It is
hmm
cutthroat. Your friends
hmm
are your teammates. They're
hmm
always looking to recruit over you. It's not going to be as
hmm
fun. In fact, I had a kid that plays club soccer tell me that he had much more fun playing rec,
Exactly.
right?
That's
He
how
goes,
I
man,
mean, I've told you that story is I quit playing travel soccer to go back and play rec soccer, and it was so much more fun for my senior year of high school.
um, the next one from coaches' concerns, unrealistic expectations, parental interference, pressure to win versus player development. I am, I preface this conversation with this. I like to win.
hmm
I love to go to games and watch my kid play and watch him win. I love it. I hate losing in jujitsu. It bothers me when I get tapped out. I want to win. But within the process, there's a developmental process that happens where it's not as important as winning as much as development. There is a time in
mm
your career that the most important thing will be winning. But in the early stages, development over time is the most important thing. Um, Parents don't understand that. Parents want to know why you're not playing all the best players in the U9 soccer rec team so you
hmm
can win 10-0. Why do you got to play that kid? Well, because he deserves an experience too.
hmm
Kids also need to learn how to lose.
Yeah.
I have a terrible losing son.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's devastating when he loses in anything, right? We have to learn that, how to do that. Um, Parents don't understand it. Parents will sell them their souls for a $5 medal at the end of a
hmm
tournament. That means absolutely nothing. So I think coaches struggle with that. I think coaches struggle with that, right? Parents struggle with coaches who see the long game. Coaches struggle with parents who don't see the long game. Um, I think there's a legitimate um disconnect between what is the purpose of youth sports,
hmm
right? I posted on Twitter today. This is something a friend of ours who was on our podcast asked. He said he's asked a parent of young kids when they're getting ready to go through this sports development phase. And he said, here's a question I want to ask you. If you knew that your kid would never play college sports, they would either not be good enough or choose not to. Think about how that will affect your decisions in the next 6 to 7 years. If you know that your kid will never play sports in college, would you make the decisions different? And then he'll ask parents who have 18-year-olds who decided not to play college sports. If you knew your kid wasn't going to play college sports, would your decision making be different? And a large majority of them said yes.
Yeah.
The
I
purpose of
think
it would be different.
more parents, and myself included one day, need to just go ahead and accept the fact that it's more than likely not going to happen. Right. So let them enjoy their time playing. And if they come to you and they are 17, 18, and they want to
Mhm.
go play college sports, then you can start having those conversations,
Yeah,
but
not
it
even is it
doesn't,
more likely, it's just not probable.
right. And it's like your 12-year-old has no freaking clue,
Yeah.
no idea.
No, they don't. And I had a parent one time come to me in a private facility setting and said, "We would like for you to work with our 12-year-old because she's decided to make a serious commitment to play college sports." One, the 12-year-old doesn't even know what that means.
Not at all.
Both parents played college sports.
Hmm.
So it's probably coming from the parents, not the kid. Um,
And I just think too that, up until you're maybe 15 or 16, 17, there's not a lot of hardship that you've faced a lot of the time.
yeah,
And there's
yeah,
not a
yeah,
lot of temptation that you've had.
yeah.
And when you get into like your sophomore, even freshman year of high school, but sophomore year, junior year of high school, it's like when you start having that first relationship that
Mhm.
actually like means something. It's not like, hey, we dated for
Yeah,
3 weeks in middle school.
yeah.
It's when you get a car, it's when you're tempted to start trying alcohol or other, it's just there's a lot of things that happen in between 14 and 18 that you don't know at 12 and you don't know at 10. And so before you think that your kid's going to be committed to these things at 18, you need to let them get to 18
Mm.
and see what trajectory they're on,
Yeah,
They'll prove
because
themselves.
here's what I'll tell you. I've never met a kid that made it to a high level sports in college or pro or even any college. I'll say this. 9 out of the 10 kids that go on and play to college, I'll go out and say this, had less parent pressure because the kid put all the pressure on himself.
Mm.
They're the ones that went and did soccer drills at 7 in the morning. They went to the cage at 7 in the morning. They stayed after to lift weights. They
Mhm.
tried to change their nutrition. They did all the practice. They sought out the coaches. They wanted to play. When you have a 13, 14, a 14, 15-year-old, say it's a 14, 15-year-old girl, and it's a Friday night and she wants to go hang out with her friends, and you criticize her because she's got to get up and leave for a soccer game at 6:30 in the morning. I see two sides to that. I see it from the parent side that you made a commitment. There's something you have to do. You have to honor that. Because you
Mhm.
decided to play the game, you have to do what's best for the team.
Mhm.
That is also the beginning of that child telling you that other things are becoming more important.
Yeah.
And
And I just
parents,
I laugh too when parents are like so surprised that their kids do the opposite of what they tell them to. I'm like, were you not a teenager one time? Like, does this not surprise you that when your mom tells you to do something, you're going to do the opposite?
yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah,
hit them with the reverse.
yeah. I tell you, I had a dad come to me one time and say, "Hey, my kid is thinking about not playing baseball and playing soccer.
Mhm.
Can you help me talk to him out of it a little bit? Because I just think his future is in baseball." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean by future? He's
What do you mean,
13."
like next year?
Yeah, like his future's in baseball? Like, is this guy Derek Jeter? Right? So that's a tough one. Parent concerns. And you can speak on this. Right? Oh,
Hmm.
what are you drinking?
It's Thursday. Whenever I have
Oh,
there's a, I go to the chiropractor at once a month on Thursdays, and there's a Sphinx next to it. And so I get a chicken biscuit and a
the
ring.
Sphinx got you.
Sphinx chicken biscuits are fire. I don't like
Oh,
fried chicken and I don't like biscuits.
but you like the chicken
Something
biscuit.
about a Sphinx chicken biscuit is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Kind of like chicken and
Anyways,
waffles. Chicken and
no,
waffles? No?
I don't like breakfast food like that.
I like chicken
No,
and I like waffles, but I don't know if I like chicken and waffles.
no,
Chicken
I
and
just don't.
waffles.
I don't like sweet breakfast food like pancakes and waffles and stuff. But anyways,
Parent concern.
yeah.
We're going to bring parents on, parent advocates
Mhm.
on. We're going to bring coaches on. Here's what the major concerns for parents were: safety and injury risks.
Mhm.
When I think of this, I think about the rising concerns for concussions. I think about girls tearing their ACLs at a higher rate.
Yeah.
I think the dad, the agent I know that doesn't want his kid to pitch.
Mhm.
I think the rise in injuries where younger kids are getting more and more and more adult type injuries.
Mhm.
I can see that, right? Um, the cost and time commitment, right? I think that's the biggest one. Parents
Yeah.
are like, what if you got three kids
Mhm.
and all of a sudden you're turning into a sports shuttle bus?
Mhm.
The financial the financial piece behind playing sports. Um, that's a real thing, right? How do you tell one kid yes, but the other kid no, right? Baseball leagues now are $3,000-4,000 to play in it, right? There's a large majority of kids that can't do it. Here's what I will say to that one though. I know a kid that pitched in the pros. He grew up in a lower income family.
Mhm.
When he was in high school and he started playing travel, he never paid a dime to go pitch on the weekends. Another parent flipped the dime because that parent wanted their son to win and that
Mhm.
they knew the only way they were going to be able to win is if this dude pitched. So they drove.
But I mean,
That's
it's
just
a
the
part
truth.
of it,
Yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
part of it. But it is crazy to me that something that should feel very accessible is not, especially at a young age. Like, as they get closer to thinking about college sports, I do understand a little bit more the price commitment and paying high level coaches and being in a high level club. But at 8 or 9 or 10 years old, like
Mhm.
it's crazy. I would love, I'm sure my dad has at one point totaled up everything that he's spent on my youth sport career. And this was, I mean, I finished youth sports 10 years ago. I'd love to know what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a friend of mine that always says I see more kids with a $300 bat and a 10-cent swing.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You
Yeah.
got a pair of Air Jordans on and they sit the bench.
Hmm.
Right. Um,
Hmm.
it is more and more and more and more expensive for kids the higher up they play.
Hmm.
Um, lack of fun. Kids eventually don't
Yeah.
have fun. I think if parents have
Yeah.
lot. I've seen multiple things with my kid been in sports. He's been in youth sports for 3 years now. Um, I've seen parents run on the field.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Oh man, I've seen almost fights happen at 8-year-old soccer. Parents screaming and screaming and screaming at kids for not
Hmm.
hustling. Get your hands out of your pocket, yelling at them.
Hmm.
Um, I've seen amazing things from parents where it blows my mind. I've been involved in situations where a parent tried to fight a coach. Um, I've seen situations where parents get in fights. I've seen parents come walking over and walk into student sections.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I
I've
mean,
just seen,
we had teams you would remember playing in youth sports and be like, I don't care as much about playing this team, but their parents suck.
yes.
Like we've heard, I mean, I had on my youth soccer team, this was when I was probably, I think probably 14. I think it was freshman year, maybe eighth grade. Um, I had a girl on my team that was black, and her parents were called all kinds of racist names in
Oh
the
my
sidelines.
God. Come, what are we
And she was
doing?
too. Yeah,
what are
just
we doing?
insane stuff. Like you would just travel to different parts of, I mean, the Southeast in
Yeah.
particular, and
Yeah.
just hear asinine things at 13 years old, 14 years old.
I'd fight over that.
Oh, 100%.
I'd fight over that.
100%.
If I had a
But
kid on
just
my team that
like,
was, if I had a kid on
you
my team
know,
that was, if I had a kid on my team that was black and somebody, and then all of a sudden got racist on the field, I'll fight for that. I got no problem. I won't play in the league anymore. I'm good.
mhm.
Like there's
I
just
mean,
some.
and the problem was is that she was so damn good. She
Well,
was so
that's probably
good.
part of the problem,
Yeah.
right? That she was
Oh, for
good,
sure. But
right? That's
just
probably
like,
part of the problem. Yeah.
that kind of involvement is, I mean, that's ludicrous.
I had a friend of mine that was a youth coach. He told me the story about a youth experience he had coaching sports. Um, he said they had a coach and umpire meeting before the game, and he said, "All right, here's the deal, umpire. Here's what we're probably gonna deal with today. Us as the coaches, we're all friends. We know each
Hmm.
other.
Hmm.
Our players are competitive.
Hmm.
They don't like each other on the field, but they all know each other since they were 12. They go,
Right.
our parents hate each other.
Yep.
Like they hate each
It's
other.
crazy.
So he goes,
It's
if
so
we're gonna run,
insane.
he told the umpire, if we're gonna run into an issue today, it's gonna be parents. Now, coaches, we're gonna battle it out. Athletes, we're gonna battle it out. Um, but you're probably gonna have a problem in the stands. And sure enough,
Yeah.
they had a problem in the stands. And I think there are a lot of coaches who just say, you know what, it's just not worth it. I do it because I love the kids,
Hmm.
but the parents are
Love the
just making
game.
it worth it. I love the
Yeah.
game. I love teaching kids the game. I love working with youth kids, but the parents are just, it's just not worth it. Because I've seen parents try to ruin the career of a coach because they didn't like the coach, didn't think the coach was fair to their kid. Where I've seen parents contact the coach's former employer and ask if there was any dirt on that person that they could bring up to get them fired from their job. This this has happened in lives in situations
Psycho.
where people's lives are at stake. People's life. What if I walked into an attorney's place and went, I'm going to find every every person you've ever represented and find out a way to get you fired
I just
because
like
of their kid, because they thought they didn't like their kid or their kid wasn't starting.
I understand the love for your kid. I really do. And one day I'll understand that a lot
Yeah,
more.
it's different.
However, I grew up in a home where like my parents, of course, loved us, but we were going to respect anyone older than us, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
any coach, even if that coach was being an asshole,
yeah,
you respect your coaches.
yeah.
And if it gets to a certain point where they need to intervene because something was said or something was done,
Mhm.
they would. But if I showed any level of disrespect to my coach, to a referee, to a teammate, to a parent that was unwarranted, I I was in a ton of trouble.
I'll tell you this story. I was pitching in Little League. We had like the Little League World Series, right? And I was pitching as like a 13-year-old. And I walked to this guy. And I was like, I don't know, there's a walk, but whatever. Well, the next guy came up. The last pitch I thought was a strike and it was a walk. And I stopped, I caught the ball and stared at the umpire and threw my hands up like this. I watched my dad walk down the steps
Hmm.
slowly. I mean, it was a slow motion. I knew it was coming. I watched him walk
Yeah.
calmly, walk down,
Yep.
walk to the dugout because his buddy was my coach. He whispered something in the dugout. Coach walks out and he goes, your dad just pulled you. My dad came to the side. And my dad said, you're never going to disrespect an umpire, act like that on the field
Hmm.
again. He goes,
Right.
you let me know when you're ready to get your life together and you can pitch again, but you're not going to
Yep.
act like that. And as soon as I threw my hands up and I looked over at my dad and saw him walking, I went,
You're just
yep,
like, Shh.
yep. I was like,
Yeah.
well, so it'd be a good ride home, right? Like it had
Right.
nothing to do with how I pitched. It had to do with my
Hmm.
attitude and how I
Hmm.
acted. Um, that's parents' concern, right? Balance, support and pressure, balance between the support and the pressure. Again, we've lost the perspective of youth sports. The purpose of youth sports is to teach your kid sacrifice, hard work, being greater
Teamwork.
teamwork, being part of something
Yeah.
greater than who he is. what
Mhm.
it means to it teaches kids, also it teaches kids meritocracy. The best
Yeah.
kids play. The
Mhm.
idea, listen, when I played sports, I could think you're the spawn of Satan,
Mhm.
but if you can help me win, you're
I
gonna
loved you.
you're gonna you're gonna play, right?
Yeah.
The idea when parents say, "Well, my kid, obviously the best one, the coach doesn't like my kid," that doesn't exist within a coach's environment. It really
Not a lot.
doesn't.
I think sometimes I'm
Way
not going to
less.
say never,
Yeah.
but yes, I would agree with you on some
Yeah.
there. But I always think there's like tell two things about somebody. If I ever meet someone in life, I'm like, you never played a team sport and or you never were in the service industry. I can always tell because you don't know
Service
how to
industry
treat
was big
people
for
very
me.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
service industry was in big when I worked at a restaurant bar in in college. You
Hmm.
really learn how to smile when they're mean.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
thank you.
you learn a lot through those two
Service industry. Yeah.
experiences. And that's
Yeah.
not saying that everybody has to go through that, but you can always tell when like someone's not a team player
Yeah.
or somebody's never really like gotten to the nitty gritty of being in the service
You know who
industry.
are the best people to coach for weight loss, in my
People who
opinion?
have been in the service industry.
Former athletes.
Oh, well, of course. Of course. Like
They understand sacrifice.
because they do understand sacrifice and they generally have a good idea of hard work and what it takes.
Mhm.
And I think like being athletic, you never really fully lose that ability. I always tell people
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like
yeah,
learning to lift weights like previous athletic years, it's like learning to ride a bike. It comes back, right? You
yeah.
really never
They
learn
go back
or
together.
lose the
Yeah.
skill. Yeah.
But
100%. They know what it feels like.
playing on a sport, you realize I have to manage my time.
Mhm.
I have to be on time for something. I have to work hard
Mhm.
for something. I'm going to get rewarded only based on my hard work and my improvement.
Mhm.
I would
And I
rather
sure as
kids,
hell don't want to be the weakest link.
I don't, yeah, right? You realize how to find value in what you do, like provide
Mhm.
value.
Mhm.
Um, and kids are held accountable by coaches who love them.
Mhm.
Coaches who don't hold you accountable don't care about you. They
Correct.
don't.
Mhm.
Students, athletes get held accountable by coaches who love them. It's hard at the time. They don't understand it. But I would rather have kids that fail and learn those lessons between 13 and 17 when the consequences is basically what? You sit a game, you don't play in
Mhm.
sports, you're not that good, you get cut from the team. I would rather them learn that at 13 to 17 than 27 to 35
Sure.
when the consequences are much higher,
Yeah.
much, much, much higher than that. That is the purpose of youth sports. I one time had a kid contact me and he got a job. He moved through his career. He became a CFO at a major hospital industry, major hospital organization. And I saw him post about it and I was really happy for him. He was only like 29,
Mhm.
CFO of like a hospital group. And I said, "Hey man, that's really awesome." And he goes, "Hey coach, you know, all the lessons I learned training with you for 5 years are the same lessons I've learned that helped me get to this point right now. That's the purpose.
Mhm.
If you're doing youth sports because you want to play in college and get a scholarship, those people are blessed. Like
Mhm.
I identified those kids before I even trained them or seen them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we're again the perspective, we're losing lost perspective of why we're doing this. Um, Issues with kids quitting, burnout, lack of enjoyment, fear of making mistakes, and pressure to specialize.
Mhm.
Kids quit because they're like, well, mom, I really like golfing with the golf team.
Mhm.
Well, if you want to play this sport in college, you can't golf with the golf team. You got to quit golf. You shouldn't play anymore. It just took the fun out of it for
Oh
kids,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The pressure in youth sports is incredible, incredible. Listen, you agree. You have to have a certain amount of pressure, right, in life,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like academic pressure is good for kids, but it's not the only thing. Like,
Oh, and also in school, you don't study one subject.
oh yeah, yeah, right. You study multiple subjects. There you go.
And even
Right?
when you
Yeah,
go and specialize, like people going through med school, they still have to do a rotation
yeah.
through a multitude of different emphases to be able
That's a
to
good
decide where they want to be.
that's a good correlation.
I just
Yeah,
think
even
it's
when you go to med school, you
insane
don't specialize until the last 10%
until you're ready to get into your specialization, you don't. You go
because
through
they're going to make
rotations.
money in it, right? Um, I have told kids, the only kids I've ever told maybe they should quit another sport later on in high school. Um, there was a couple $1 million on the line,
Well, that's different. That's a
right?
totally
Yeah,
different story.
but that's one out of 1,000, right?
Yeah.
There's an injury concern,
Hmm.
um, or academics were struggling,
Yeah. And
right?
that's
Right.
always like, I think that's important. Those conversations are probably needed. But if you're just telling your kid to specialize just because you think your kid is going to excel in that particular sport, I don't know.
I think
I
what
just think
happens to
we've heard too
kids,
many things that are conflicting with that.
I think, yeah, yeah, we know not to specialize our kids, but still it happens, right? That's
Hmm.
because parents listen to somebody who doesn't care about your kid. I flat told people if somebody tells your kid to specialize early in a sport, they don't care about your kid. I don't claim ignorance anymore. We have the
Hmm.
internet,
Yeah.
right? They just don't care about your kid. They're selfish. One of the things that I want to touch on, and I think we're going to touch on it with Dr. Tiff. We're going to bring
Hmm.
on a coach. I got some parent advocates that want to come on. We're going to bring people on in this series. Um, this is true for academics, and this is also true for sports. We make the mistake of allowing kids to find their identity in their academics or their sports. And the problem is that's going to go away.
Yeah.
And if your kid's identity is in the fact that they're a soccer player in high school, that's going to be fleeting. That's going to be gone at 18. If they try to play college, it's gone at 22. You know, no different than telling your kids that the value of who he is in his 4.0. They're going to get a B or a C. How are you going to pick up the pieces when
Hmm.
that happens, right? Um, I've seen too many kids have little nervous breakdowns over their grades. I've had too many kids get nervous breakdowns around their inability to perform
Hmm.
because the expectation is there. And you know what they always say? Well, I don't want to let my dad down.
Yeah.
That's brutal. I don't want to let my coach down, right? I've had kids drafted for millions of dollars in high school, out of high school to play college sports or to play professional sports. And one thing they can't, I had a kid tell me one time, this was 10 years ago. Um, wait, was it 10 years ago? Yeah, 12 years ago. He got drafted in the first round and he got paid. Little country boy got
Hmm.
paid out of high school, looked like a grown man. He goes, Coach, really, what if I'm really not as good as that $2.5 million they paid me? I'm like, ooh,
Yeah. That's hard.
that is a tough conversation. One, I don't feel 2.5, right? I don't feel that. But he's like, what if I'm not that good? What if I'm really not that good? What if I'm a fraud,
Yeah.
right? Well, all the way up to the guy that all he's known is baseball or football or whatever from the age of 12 years old to at 28 years old, he goes and plays pro. He gets to the majors for a year. He comes back and they go, hey, you're not good enough. We're probably going to cut you. That's your identity, right? But that is happening early and early and early on. And kids,
Hmm.
their parents put this pressure where they create their identity off their sport. You want to set a kid up for mental health problems? Only affirm them for their athletic accolades,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
You're setting a kid up for mental health issues because their value
Hmm.
is put in the sport. I don't think that's talked enough. Um,
I think that's a great point.
with that said, parents tend to blame coaches, coaches tend to blame parents. There are millions of kids who have great athletic experiences. There are,
Hmm.
right? Would you say your athletic experiences growing up were overall positive?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't take back any of it. I learned so many different things. And like, even though I had a couple bad coaches, my good coaches far outnumbered my bad coaches.
Yeah.
Um, I, I hope, and Alston and I say this all the time, we hope that our kids decide to play sports because we both love sports. We love being involved in sports.
Hmm.
I think Alston will be a coach one day for our kids. Like I just think it would be a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And we just grew up heavy in sport, but my parents never forced me to specialize either. I played four sports up until I was
Yeah.
17. So like,
Yeah.
it's just I love sports and
Yeah.
I do think that the good outweighs the bad for my experience. But I do think there's room for change,
Well,
100%.
there
So
has to be change. I just don't know where that
yeah,
comes from and how that happens. It's got to be done
how it
in
starts.
how it
Yeah.
starts on an individual basis, right? I tell people, and it's the thread that I'm in with some coach friends of mine, and we'll share stories or posts or clips. And they go, well, what's the change? How do you change it? I said, change is done by individual conversations with individual kids and families.
Yeah. Well, and just like
Right.
opening the door for the conversation, like who I immediately think of is I don't know if you've heard of Mel Robbins. I'm sure you've seen her on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, but she's a blonde lady that's a mental health advocate and she wrote the book called Let Them. But it's just her starting to start this conversation of like improving your mental health, the idea of just, if you can't control something, let them. But that's
Mhm.
kind of how I feel like it starts, is like you start the conversation and the conversation carries into other coaches and other coaches change their mind and then other parents change their mind. And so I don't know, as long as we can keep talking about
I,
it,
I have a good friend of mine that says that as long as every decision he makes is what he feels is in the best interest for the kid, he'll never apologize to anybody for it. The
100%.
parents might get mad, a coach might get mad, but as long as I feel that I'm an advocate, and he said this, as long as I feel like I'm an advocate for what's beneficial for the kid, I'm on the right track,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'm on the right track. So, you know, if you're listening to this and you want to participate in these, if you have questions, if you have stories, I would love to hear people's stories. I want good stories too. Like I want
Yeah.
people to contact us and say, "Hey, I didn't have a dad,
Hmm.
right? And my mom worked all the time.
Hmm.
And I got involved in youth sports and the coach became a father figure. And to this day, I am who I am because I had a great coach involved in my life,
Yeah.
right? There's are
Hmm.
thousands of thousands of thousands of those stories. Um,
Hmm.
it could be all the way down to, hey, I had a coach who, you know, was verbally abusive. I had a coach
Hmm.
that, you know, eating disorders for female athletes are rampant, especially when you
Yeah.
get into college. I've heard multiple stories.
Hmm.
And girls say things like, hey, my coach literally told me I can't play because I'm too fat, right? I mean, that'll get you
Yeah.
punched in the face. That'll get you punched in the face quick. Um, but there are those stories. Kids who their whole life was about playing to college and they got injured their senior year and never played college sports and they haven't been able to get their life back since because,
Yeah.
they made decisions that weren't best for them. Like I want those stories. So if you're hearing this, we're going to reach out to people and I'm going to reach out to people on social media and hear
Yeah.
people's stories and see if people can send us videos of their stories. But this isn't going to be, I don't want people to hear this and be like, you're just going to bash parents. Because I know those coaches. Oh, it's parents, it's parents' fault. Well, you know what? There's some really crappy coaches out there,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
right?
I think
There's
it's
some,
more so just changing the conversation around youth sports into a positive one and how we can like again make a better
yeah.
decision for children because they
Because
can't make their own decisions.
what did you say? It's a 33 billion, but it's supposed to be a 60 billion dollar
65
industry,
billion
$1 billion.
projected by 2030.
Well,
Um,
there's no, it's obviously important
right.
because there's $60 billion worth of money
Globally. Hmm.
globally running through it.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about like European model, US model, what the difference is.
I know.
Um,
I'll have to brainstorm if I can think of anyone that's involved in like a different country in youth sports. I'm sure I know
yeah,
someone
I
somewhere.
had a conversation with someone that came here from the soccer environment in Europe and was very
Yeah.
blown away by how it was so different here in youth sports.
Would
We talked about that. Um,
I'd love to hear that.
I would love to hear. That'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
That'd be really
Difference.
cool.
That'd
Hmm.
be that'd be cool. But if you're hearing this and you want to participate, whether tell a story, come on and do an episode, you got a story you want to share to get out to people.
Hmm.
Um, I want you on this. I want to hear. But I want to be like catalyst for change here. It's not going to be a bashing thing, right? You have your experiences, good and bad. You're going to have kids. You're going to learn how to, you know, I learned how to navigate my kid and what he does in sports because I've been very lucky to be involved in this for 25 years.
Hmm.
I have a very strong, I have a very strong connection to what's good and what's bad because I've seen it. I know about
Yeah.
it. I'm very, very privy. Other things in parenting, I have no clue about, right? right? It's just, feeding my kid healthy and athletics events is about all. Like, I don't do any checkup on my kids' academics.
Yeah.
Mom does.
Yeah, but I do. I love the conversation because I've told you before, even just listening to you talk about it and Zach talk about it and Randy talk about it, Josh and Dr. Tiff, like
Yeah.
I've changed, maybe not even changed. I've just like grown my ideas around youth
Hmm.
sports and how it's supposed to look and how it should look and how I want to teach my future children one day,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think again, just like being able to talk about
Do you
this
think you
and
could coach your kid?
yeah, I mean, I do. I coached when I was in high school. I coached younger kids. I think I'd be a great
But
coach.
could
I
you
coach
coach
people now.
yeah, right. But I've made the commitment that I don't want to coach my kid. I want my kid to how to
I
learn
probably
from other people.
won't.
Yeah.
I won't. I don't. I
Like if
think
you had
a
a little daughter,
separation. I think a
yes.
separation of parent and
Yeah.
child is very important.
Yeah.
I think learning from someone else is very important.
Yeah.
I don't think, especially female to female, I think that's a little bit different. I do
Think
think
it's more
dad and
male to
son
male.
could
Dad and
be.
son's different.
Yeah, can be. I don't know. I think it depends on the relationship. I think, the great thing about Alston is if I think about him in a coaching aspect, he's not somebody that's like gonna apply immense pressure on somebody. Like I don't
Is he a
see
little
him
more
being
more
that
laid
kind
back
of
of a is
parent.
he a little bit
Yeah,
more laid
he
back than
loves the
that? Yeah.
game,
Yeah.
like he just loves sports. So I think
Yeah.
it'd be more than anything having a positive, happy environment where you grow.
Yeah.
And learn the game and love the game. But I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see one day. I don't think I would ever coach, but I do think I could if I had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely would be that supportive parent on the sidelines. I'm
Yeah,
excited
for
for
sure.
that.
Oh, there's nothing better than seeing moms cheer on their kids, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing better than cheering moms you get there because they love their kid and want to get
Hmm.
involved and love seeing their kid succeed, and it's hard to see your kid lose, and all of that. And somebody I know always says, you know nothing gets a parent more emotional than two things: money and their kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen parents become completely irrational about their kid,
Yeah.
almost to like, I'm like, am I being
Are
punked?
you okay?
Like,
Yeah.
are you, what? Like, you hear all the way down to, I've heard kids, these are conversations I've had.
Hmm.
Um, one year at my school, we had two kids that were, at one point, we had a 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star on the football team in a small school. Unheard of. What it
Hmm.
did is it made people real. When you go through a time, we also had a first round draft pick, multiple kids go to college in other sports within that 4-year range. What that did is it made all the other parents think that college scholarships were handed out like candy.
Hmm.
I said, no, I've never been involved in anything like this. We're in a 4-year span. We have this much talent in a school. I've never seen anything like it. It's incredible.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's not easy. This is an anomaly.
Hmm.
But I had parents who played for other schools that would hit me up because we're friends, and they'd say, I don't understand why that kid's getting drafted or getting recruited or getting looks at. I feel my kid's just as good. And I'm like, is there a punchline coming? Like, it, I'm waiting for the ha ha ha. Like, I'm waiting for the just kidding. Like, no, they're not even in the same universe as that kid. They're two
Yeah.
completely different. The only thing those kids have in common is they have 2 arms and 2 legs and they put on a glove.
Hmm.
That's it.
Hmm.
Where they're like, yeah, my kid's not getting any looks. He's getting screwed. No, your kid's just not as good as those kids, and he's not good. But that doesn't mean he's not a great kid and a great
Yeah.
human, and he was a great teammate, and he's going to learn great lessons and have value in life. He's just not as good as that kid, and that's okay,
Hmm.
right? Nobody's screwing your kid over. But the number of parents, like I think there's a study that an organization went to South Florida to a little league tournament, and they went around and interviewed parents, and it's either 67 or 72. I can't remember what. Between 67 and 72% of their parents believed that their kid um, had what it took to play baseball after high school. 67 to 72% of the parents at this little league tournament, 12 and 13-year-olds, believe that their kid had what it take to continue playing baseball after high school. The number is 6%.
Yeah, no, of course it is. Of course it is.
Isn't
I
that
just,
incredible?
it is incredible. I just, that's another thing we could probably talk about with whoever wants to come on is just like really inflated belief of your child and their ability. And I
Hmm.
think, again, I don't have kids, so I can't speak to this in like a real time, but I just, I don't know. My parents never believed like, and this is, they believe in us, of course. They know we're smart. They
Yes,
know that we're
yes,
athletic. They know that we're all these
yeah.
things. But my parents were never like, oh, you're the best one. You're the best at everything. Like, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's probably where I got my I can
You
never
know,
lie because my
you,
parents never lied to
you know
us.
what, yeah, because before this, we were talking about like, we always have the conversation before the conversation on our podcast. We're
Mhm.
talking about like if we had sponsors for a podcast, like I couldn't promote something that I think is complete doo doo, right? Because I just can't.
Yeah,
I'm the worst seller.
I can't lie.
But I have people in my life that I speak to accountability because I know that I can become irrational about my own child.
Hmm.
So one of the things is injuries. Like my kid went through
Hmm.
something systemic where like I don't know if it's growing pains, but like his hands would swell, his feet would swell, he would be in tears, his body would ache, we'd have this systemic swelling going on. And it was repeated, 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 where like he went through a 2 week phase where he couldn't play sports. It was weird swelling, like things going on. And I'm like, dang, my kid's got like rheumatoid. You know how your brain is. Like my kid's got
Yeah.
pediatric rheumatoid arthritis and right. And I had to go to like friends of mine and be like, hey, at what point do I go get this checked out? Like, am I being too conservative or am I being a
Hmm.
bad dad by not getting checked out? Or am I freaking out? Right.
Hmm.
I have people in my life that I'm going to use in my life when it comes to my kid and making decisions around a lot of things that I go to them understanding that I have a bias.
Yeah.
I can be irrational. I've seen other people become irrational, and I can go to them and be like, hey, from you looking from the outside in, what do you see? Because I
Yeah.
can't look at it normal. And I've
Yeah.
had people in my life
That's
that do
fair.
that that have been very helpful because I understand that, like, I'm going to naturally think that my kid's the best on the team
Totally. Hmm. Yeah.
because I've heard parents say, I don't understand why my kid's on the bench. She's the best on the team. And I go,
Like,
no.
your kid's on the bench for a reason.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But doesn't mean
Sorry.
that he can't have value, right? Like doesn't mean
Yeah, of
he
course.
doesn't promote the team in other areas. So
Hmm.
um that is episode one. And I think we're gonna do more. Tiffany's next. Dr. Tiff's
Yeah.
next. We're gonna
Yep.
bring on some other people. But if you have questions or concerns or want to share a story, please do.
Yeah. It'd be awesome.
All right.
With all due respect.